Scotland accustoms us to many conveniences. There are always big supermarkets near every small town. It's a swimming pool. It's a place where they have all kinds of fun activities for children. This is where people meet for different holidays. Not far from here is the local health clinic. The main street is 3 to 5 minutes by walk from here. My name is Maria. I came to Scotland quite recently. I came from Berdiansk. I came with my daughter. She's 10 years old. Her name is Vasilisa.
My name is Julia. I left Ukraine on the 11th of March, when the nuclear power plant in Energodar was occupied. That night, I made the decision to move from Dnipro. I couldn't sleep that night. We packed our bags. We left the same morning when the curfew ended. At the end of March, the United Kingdom government launched a sponsorship scheme for Ukrainians. Scotland was the fastest and the most generous on visas for Ukrainians. My friend Joanna, who lives in Scotland, started emailing me. She started writing me on Facebook. She started calling me, "Julia, what's going on with you? We are all praying for you. Come to me, I'm begging you." She said, "You won't be safer anywhere than in the United Kingdom."
In Britain, people speak in English. Well, you can see that. And there is no English in Ukraine. And in Britain, I go to school. And in Ukraine, I went to kindergarten. My name is Natalia. This is Paulina. We are from Kyiv. 7 years ago, I was lucky to be in London. We lived here for 3 months in that same family and in that same house. I was here with my husband. He won a grant to do a legal internship. We lived here for 3 months, and probably the main difference is that we were together then, and we knew that in 3 months we'd be back home. This family, as soon as the war started, they immediately offered to be our sponsors and help with any nuances, help with accommodations.
We were really shocked that it had occurred and that the barbarity of the Russian invaders was so terrible, and we were very, very upset for everybody in the country who was suffering.
We were not expecting, we knew that they were building up armies at the border, but we were really not expecting that there was going to be an invasion.
We felt very much that we wanted to do something to help.
Yes, and as we knew, actually we knew Natalia and Zhenya, and we never met Polina, but we thought if we could help them, it would be a good thing, at least trying to help somebody.
We lived under occupation for a month. I live on the 13th floor in Berdiansk city center. We were awoken by hearing several explosions in the morning. We could say it turned our lives upside down. On the second day after the war started, my baby was sick with chicken pox. That's why we couldn't leave the city. We were living in Berdiansk for quite a long time. We met people from Mariupol who needed help. We used to bring them food, clothes. At this time, on the 27th, the enemy entered our city. A lot of people who lived in the suburbs were killed. The enemy troops decided to locate themselves in our city port, which was located under my windows. On March 24th, there was a huge explosion under my windows. The Ukrainian armed forces demolished a ship and an ammunition depot. It was at this time that I went downstairs to throw out the trash. There were two massive explosions. I cannot tell you the emotion I felt at that moment, because at that very moment on the 13th floor were the people most dear to me. That's my husband and my baby. I threw this trash on the first floor and ran upstairs to the 13th floor. I had the feeling that the missile had hit my house. The walls of my house were shaking so intensely. When I ran up to my floor, I saw that they were fine, but the shells that exploded in the port, they flew up like fireworks and exploded in front of my windows. It was very scary and unexpected. It was on this day that we decided to leave town. We couldn't do it because our city was under occupation. The enemy was deciding when exactly we could do it. The enemy was deciding when we can go to that street or that street. On March 24th, our city was not allowed to evacuate people. So we stayed in the city and we weren't able to leave until March 25th. The road to Zaporizhia was very hard. We drove for 2 days. We went through 20 checkpoints. 3,000 people in buses, children, adults, men, elderly, disabled. The ambulances were transporting children injured because of the enemy's invasion. We spent the night in the field. It was like it would never end. The next day, only in the evening, we arrived in Zaporizhia. It was an incredible feeling when you see your people, when you see your defenders, when you see your flags. That's the kind of feeling you'll remember forever. And it's happiness. It's happiness through tears. My husband sent us to go further abroad, and he stayed in Ukraine.
My name is Lida. I'm Ukrainian in United Kingdom. I came to UK on the 22nd of April. I came with my mother and my child. I came here because I was offered a job in the town of Milton Keynes. I was interviewed sitting in a basement in Kiev. We were in Kiev when the war started. We lived at a private house. Me, my husband, my daughter, and my mother. We've been in Kiev for 40 days. But I realized at some point that the war was affecting my daughter very much. I was very worried about her psychological state. I started thinking about it and started looking for an opportunity to leave. But it was very important for me to get a job. That's why I started sending out resumes to different companies overseas. Then I got an invitation for an interview. They talked to me, and just about an hour later, they sent me a contract for the job. Why? Because I have specific experience with sports and sales management. I was exactly the kind of person my employers were looking for. They couldn't find someone with that kind of experience in the city where their company is located. Then they helped me find sponsors. This happened on March 18. That was the first day when the scheme Homes for Ukraine was launched. That was the first day of my interview. On March 20, we applied for a visa.
My name is Margot. I'm 27 years old. I used to live in Kiev. Now I live in London. I'm the founder and CEO of a startup called Legal Nodes. We are developing a legal platform. This platform helps to solve legal issues around the world. I've been living in the UK since I was 14 years old. I came here to study. First, I studied at school, then college, and then university. When the war started, I was in Kiev. My ticket to London was just for February 24th. When all this started, the most important thing for me was to protect my closest family members. I had that sponsor program experience in England. It wasn't an easy journey. First of all, you have to find a sponsor in the UK. It's hard enough to do, especially if you don't have someone to help you here locally, because it's very important to talk to these people, to see what kind of family they are, what kind of housing they could offer. The first step was to find a sponsor. The second step was to apply for a visa. It was pretty simple. As far as I remember, it is necessary to fill out the form in English and Ukrainian. There is nothing difficult in general. There is actually a video that tells you how to properly fill out this application. There is such a system here that you can't just move and that's it. But you can move if you've found a family who is ready to shelter you, a family who is willing to give you a room or several rooms to live in. It's all free of charge. I think it's a very cool system. The way Ukrainians are treated here is proven by the huge number of families in Great Britain who are ready to shelter Ukrainian families. They are willing to just open their doors and let people live here.
My name's Catherine and I live in Lewis. I saw the news that Russia had invaded Ukraine and it was unbelievable that that had happened. And the whole of the news feed and the stories, everything was dominated by Ukraine and by Russia and Ukraine. And then you start seeing the stories that come out of the families that are affected. And I think especially, I don't know if you remember, there was that little girl, she was beautiful, she was 7 years old, and she was killed by a Russian bomb in Kiev. I've got a daughter, a 6-year-old daughter, and I wanted to try and explain to her that some of the children, when I was putting her to bed, they're not going to bed in their own beds in their houses, they have to go into shelters. I felt like I wanted to do something, and it was very difficult to know what to do because otherwise I was just watching the news. And so then there were lots of initiatives from the government to help support Ukrainians coming over here. And I said to my daughter, how would you feel about living with a family who've had to leave their country because they can't live in it anymore, and then come and live with us? And she was very casual. She's like, okay, Mama, yeah, that's fine, you know. And there were loads of people getting in touch through a charity called Europe Helps Ukraine. And I spoke to another mum whose daughter and her moved away from the southern region of Ukraine and decided to come to the UK. So we decided to sponsor them to come and stay with us.
British are very supportive towards the Ukrainians. They have a very well-developed sense of empathy. When you start telling them about the events that are taking place in Ukraine, it seems to me that some of them have tears in their eyes.
It seems to me that they treat Ukrainians like Boris Johnson, with great warmth and love for every Ukrainian. I didn't meet any people who spoke negatively about Ukrainians. No one here says, refugees came here on ready-made, we have to feed them now. I have never met anyone like that. Everyone I met expressed sincere sympathy about the whole situation in Ukraine. They said, we are very sorry about the situation in Ukraine and we want to help you. Tell us how can we help you. The British are very polite people. Ukrainians need to get used to the fact that the British are overly polite. They are not as straightforward as we are. I can give you an example from my work. My boss writes to me, if you have a minute, if you're not too busy and you're feeling good, and a whole paragraph like this, maybe you could take a quick look at this document. I understand that the British are thus implying that you should sit down and read this document right now. But I'm not sure that most Ukrainians can understand that they are being asked to do this right now. The British people are incredibly kind people. Most of them. They really want to help. But you have to understand that you can't overuse this help. In fact, the sponsor is the person who gives you a place to live. This is the person who has opened the doors of his home to you. They get £350 from the state for each family that came in. That is, not for each person individually, but for each family that came in. This £350 is like gratitude from the state for being willing to do this. This money should not cover any of their expenses, so it's completely legal if they ask you to pay the utilities. You have to buy groceries with your own money. You have to pay for transport with your own money. The Ukrainians must understand that if they come here without financial savings, it's not going to be easy for them here. First of all, you have to understand that they opened the doors of their home to Ukrainians. For example, I personally am not sure if I could open the door of my home to someone else. They did, and they do it because of their kindness. This concerns most Brits.
People in the UK have taken this hosting really seriously. And, for example, friends of mine have rearranged their house. They've created a kitchen separate to their kitchen. They have made the first floor of their house, to accommodate a family. And they've changed their structure of living in their house for the family to move in with them. I think people have made a big, big effort. And I just hope that that continues, and, and employers and potential landlords, and they will equally look at the benefit of having refugees in our country and what skills they can bring. Yeah.
They have two types of invitations. I came under the sponsorship scheme. I came to people I already knew. Joanna sent me an invitation. Sponsors have to pass a certain inspection. They need to have a certificate of no criminal history. People come to their homes, they check their electricity, they see how they are living. They see if they have a separate bedroom and a separate bathroom for the people they're inviting. They are checking many aspects of the families in which Ukrainians will live. I asked Joanna if the inspection was difficult. She said they had to update the fire safety system. She resolved this issue in 3-5 days, and they gave her permission. A few days later, I flew from Estonia to Scotland. Joanna and her family met me at the airport. I was surrounded by a lot of love and kindness. I'm an orphan. My mother died before I was 14 years old. I've never had a big family. Here in Scotland, they celebrate all holidays together as a big family. It's a tradition. They invite guests to their homes. They are very open, very hospitable. They have a big dinner party for every holiday. They are real. They are similar to Ukrainians in some way. I have traveled around a lot, but I have never seen such hospitality and such a sense of care and freedom.
People in Scotland are very friendly and welcoming. In some ways, they're like Ukrainians. You can meet a grandmother in the supermarket who will be very friendly to you. She will look kindly at your pet. She will kiss it, and then she can ask, "Where are you from?" When she hears that you came from the Ukraine, she might start crying. She will hug you and say very kind things to you as well. And she will always ask if she can help.
When I came to UK, I saw a very large number of groups and channels in different social networks. These groups help people to find out some important and necessary information for them. I read these posts, and when I see that someone answers someone's post incorrectly, I realized that I can apply my analytical work experience, where I worked with a lot of information. I can tell complicated things in simple terms. I focused on that. I created my blog, Ukrainian in the United Kingdom. I cooperate with the charity organization Opora. This organization created the possibility of a connection between sponsors and Ukrainians. That was at the beginning of the existence of this scheme. It's very important for me too. I can be useful. I can't go to war, but I can do something to help others. As for the super sponsorship scheme and the girls that I met, the Scottish government invites Ukrainian women and children and accommodates them in hotels. Then they find sponsorship schemes for them, or they can find social housing. What is social housing? It's housing that is partly paid for by the state. People are offered to move into houses, apartments, depending on how many people will be living in. As far as I know, 1 bedroom per person.
We came to Scotland under the Super Sponsorship Scheme. Here it's called the Scottish Kingdom Super Sponsorship. We were very worried that we would have to live in the same room with someone. When we arrived, they met us, took us to a hotel. We lived in the hotel for 3 weeks. We were fed and taken care of. We were provided with all the conditions so that we could fill out all the necessary documents. After 3 weeks, we were given our own apartment by our Ukrainian standards. It was a large apartment. It is a 3-room apartment with 2 bedrooms. We live in a very nice and small town not far from Glasgow. It's a suburb of Glasgow. We can get to the city center in 9 minutes by train. It gives us a great opportunity to go to Glasgow at any time and do all our affairs there. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but no other country welcomed us like Scotland did. After we were settled in their hotel, the council worked with us. It is the local Scottish body that takes care of the refugees from Ukraine. They explained everything to us. We didn't feel any need for anything. We were given a lot of attention. We always had an interpreter with us. They were very friendly with us. They all had a great sense of humor. We got everything we needed within the first 2 days of arrival. When we arrived at our apartment, this is something unbelievable. Even our beds were made up. Even beds. When we opened the refrigerator, there was a lot of food. There was bread, butter, different yummy things for the kid. In the living room, there were books, such as these brochures with a lot of interesting information about the local currency, about how to arrange security in the house. The TV was new. It was packed. All the utilities were paid in advance. When we arrived, we already had a router and internet. They even gave us new toothbrushes. When I entered the apartment and saw all this, I could not control my emotions. I cried. We are very lucky. We live in a private house in central London. We live on the top floor, where we have 2 separate rooms and a separate bathroom. We can say that we have our own private space. The kitchen and other rooms are all shared. But the fact that we have 2 separate rooms for me and Polina, that's enough for us. We feel ourselves very comfortable.
More than 80,000 Ukrainians arrived to Great Britain. Most of them live with sponsors, as I do. But since I have a work contract, I am now looking to find my own housing. I came with my mother and child. We can't rent a room. It has to be a separate private apartment or house. This will be a big problem for Ukrainians after the end of the Homes for Ukraine scheme, after the minimum period of 6 months, which the British have agreed to. Because not all British people agreed to provide accommodation for Ukrainians for a period up to a year. After the end of this scheme, some Ukrainians may have difficulties to find a place to live. For example, together with Opora, we conducted a survey just a few days ago. We conducted a survey among our subscribers. The survey was on the topic, what are your future plans for living in the UK? I was shocked by the results. 40% do not know what they will do in the future. Maybe they haven't discussed it with their sponsors. Maybe they will allow them to stay longer, or maybe they will be able to pay their sponsors for the room in which they will be living. If the government doesn't intervene, it could cause a crisis this winter. Maybe the government will introduce new rules or something.
The government helps a lot. A Ukrainian who comes here gets almost the same status as a British person. Ukrainians have the right to reside for 3 years, have the right to work, to receive social assistance. There are different types of social assistance. It's unemployment benefit and child benefit.
On the first day, we wrote a letter to the council and we were given £200 in cash assistance, which was our first money here in the UK. After that, we had to fill out the paperwork for universal credit. This is a program that allows us to get money until we start working. Every month, I get £334 in cash assistance until I get a job. If you are living with sponsors and you don't spend money on housing, it's enough money to buy food and basic necessities. We came here with one suitcase in hand. It was in early spring, and now it's July, and we needed to buy some things. So that's quite enough money for us. Kiev is not a cheap city either. Here it's important to remember the difference in wages in Ukraine and Britain. If I get £330 here, that's 12,000 hryvnias. In Kiev, I could buy more with this money. In general, there is no big difference in the prices for products in the stores. Probably the prices of fruits and vegetables are higher here. But if you take into account the prices of meat, cereals, basic products, the prices are about the same. When you get the right of residence for 3 years, you're effectively equal in rights to the British. For example, you can even vote in Wales and in Scotland. You do not have the right to vote in England. Thus, Ukrainians get everything that the British have. I always say that, and there are so many examples on my blog, it's better to work at least a few hours than not to work at all. Because that cash assistance will be reduced if you have children when you exceed a certain level of your income. If you work at least 20 hours a week, and if you have children, you'll still get financial assistance from the state. So I advise everyone who comes here to get a job. It's better to work at least a few hours. As for employment, with my level of English, I feel comfortable here. I already have several job offers, but I continue to work in the Ukrainian company. I work remotely on the computer. Thank God I have a job in Ukraine, and in this way I can support the economy of Ukraine. At the moment, I prefer to work for a Ukrainian company and pay taxes to Ukraine.
I am currently trying to work in Glasgow. I'm a hairdresser. Several times a week I go to Glasgow and work with our Ukrainians. My level of English is not very good at the moment, so I work with Ukrainians, Belarusians and Lithuanians who live here. In this way, we help one another. They help me to earn something, and I help them because I understand what they want. I understand what they need.
3 weeks after I came here, I started looking for a job. My host helped me a lot with my job search. Her acquaintances were just looking for a speech therapist. We made up an interview and sent it, and I was invited to the first interview. The first interview was in English with the director, and they looked at my basic skills, what I can do and what can I offer them. They said that until I confirm my diploma, I can work as a speech therapist assistant. But they pay an assistant speech therapist 10 times more than the speech therapist in Ukraine. I used to work in a state clinic, and I got 7,000 hryvnias as a salary. Here I will work part-time, and I will get a salary up to 40,000 hryvnias a month. This is a part-time job, and in Ukraine I worked full-time. So you can do the calculation by yourself. 2 weeks later, I got the answer that I passed the first and the second interview, and they would send me a contract. Just yesterday, I got the contract for the job. So, congratulations to me. I start working at a private clinic in my city in September.
My name is Irina Vinogradna. I'm 64 years old. In my home country during peacetime, I was a pensioner. I went to England to support my daughter, to help her with her child. She is a mother with a baby and she needs to work, and of course she needs help with the baby. I didn't think about working and having a career here. The job center told me I had to get a job. The retirement age starts at 66 years, so I need to work for 2 more years. My daughter wrote a post online that I was a gardener and I need a job. It turned out that this profession is very much in demand. The soil here is very heavy. This is not Ukraine. In Ukraine, everything grows very fast and it's easy to do. Here I had to buy a special Japanese tool because only with this tool I can pull the wheat out of this soil. The same for pruners and all sorts of saws. I have a cart with all these tools. I come in with it all and do my job. It's called a cleaning bed here. I also do shrub trimming, lawn care. It's a lot of work. In fact, people have been waiting for workers like this. They really have a shortage of workers because they are big fans of gardens, tiny front gardens. Over time, with the development of digital knowledge, the specialty has disappeared among them. Young people don't do this work. They have chosen another field. Men are in the business of trimming shrubs. They trim with a trimmer. Women don't do it. There are, of course, landscape designers, but simple labor is in demand. You need people to take care of it all.
There are a lot of charitable organizations that help you find a job. If you are a qualified specialist and would like to do what you're used to, for this you need English, then you can find a good job with a high salary. It's quite possible. I was studying English 15 years ago. My English level was upper intermediate. But I had no practice, and of course, I had forgotten English. But if you come here, you have no options. You need to speak only English. In these 2 months, I was able to get my English level back. On Monday, I took my college exam. Now I am a college student. I will start studying in September. Everything in my life starts in September. I was taking on a course that will last 12 weeks. If I pass the exam, I'll get an international certificate. I have no problems with the foreign language. I can communicate fluently in English. With my job, it's impossible not to know English. If I want to work as a speech therapist in UK, to work with British children, I have no choice. I have to know English.
The British are very loyal to your level of English, especially in London. There are many different cultures, different foreigners. Everyone speaks differently. Everyone has a different accent. I think they are very loyal. I have great successes in English here. The first day we came, I was afraid. However, little by little, I saw how others spoke, so I started speaking myself. I saw the child becoming more confident. They supported her in learning English, helped her. Little by little, step by step, she began to speak. She gradually started reading in English. Her teachers were very supportive. It gave her confidence. Learning at school is different. I don't know, maybe we were lucky with the British school. The children here seem happy. The teachers were able to create a supportive environment in which the children can reveal themselves as much as possible. There are no wrong ideas. The children are free to express themselves, to show their talents, their ideas. It helps them to be kinder, to feel more free. The other children in the class were very accepting of Polina. They had a lot of interest in her and supported her. If she is sad, the children come up to her and try to support her in some way. I was accepted into the team. I'm very happy about that. I made a lot of friends. Every day I would come home and tell my mother that I made new friends.
My child is 6 years old, and she goes to primary school. She went to the first grade. When we came, she was 5, now she is 6. In UK, it's the first grade. It's usually not very difficult to get a child into a primary school. There are a lot of schools like this in UK. It can be a problem if your child is over 12 years old. This is a secondary school, and there are less of these schools in the UK. If you want to register your child in the middle of the school period, you are likely to be rejected because there are not enough places. Basically, it's a pretty simple process. On the website of the local municipality or council, as they called it here, you submit an application, then you wait for an answer, and they will tell you if there is a place available for your child at the school closest to you that you have chosen. The school told us that we had to wait a week until they were ready to take us. They did preparatory work with the children, explained everything to them, and said that a new girl from Ukraine would come to them. She is the only child from Ukraine in this school. Her level of English was very low. After a few months, she improved a lot. She can speak simple sentences. She understands more. The education system is very different from the Ukrainian one. Why? In Ukraine, your education is focused on a child to understand in details all areas of the world. Here, They give a little knowledge in every sphere. They do not have a specific curriculum or textbooks for the first years of education. They have what is called the national curriculum, which lists the topics that a child needs to learn. The teacher decides how to learn those topics. The teacher has to have a very good imagination in order to get children interested in learning. The older kids, 10, 11 years old, say that they learned everything here in England and they have already studied in Ukraine. Here, they pay a lot of attention to the development of the child's personality. A child can easily approach the school director and ask any question he or she is interested in. The director will answer all questions and he will try to be on the same level as the child to explain everything. The child does not have any complexes. If the child starts fooling around, running and shouting, no one will even say a word to him.
They do not have the same workload as we have in Ukraine. The first class, reception class, is like our kindergarten preparatory group. Everything is in the form of games. They do not sit at desks unless they draw during their free time. Math, English, the whole learning process is by playing. They sing songs, they play. When I asked Paulina in the first days of school what they were learning, she answered that she wasn't learning anything, they were just playing. Teachers are the same. In our kindergarten we studied more, but at school we play all the time.
Great Britain is different from Ukraine. Education, medicine, rent, everything we are used to in Ukraine. Everything is completely different here. You are in a completely new environment. There are certain rules that must be followed. There were such situations. For example, you can come to school only in school uniform. There are Ukrainians who do not agree with this. They can say that it infringes on my child's right to express himself. We will not wear this uniform. But you have to understand that this is a rule, and you have to go to school in uniform. I'll give you another example. You can never bring nuts to school. Some Ukrainians may be indignant and say, "Why can't my child bring nuts to school? He will eat them himself. He won't share them with anyone." But it's a rule. You can't bring nuts to school. No way. Because a lot of British kids are severely allergic to nuts. Sometimes even smelling nuts can cause an allergic reaction. In any case, you cannot bring nuts. Some Ukrainians may also resent this and say it infringes on their rights. You have to understand, if we are here, we have to follow the rules of the country we came to.
I came from Kyiv. It's a free country, and I came to a traditional English school. I was given a school uniform, and they told me I had to go to church 3 times a week, including Sundays. I didn't have a single day off when I could just sleep. I am an only child in my family, and I came to a school where we were living with 2 and 4 people in a room. I realized it was a very good opportunity for me. However, it was a difficult experience for me as a 14-year-old girl. Like all Ukrainians, I was always a freedom-loving person. I wanted to change that and to be among other people, so after this school, I went to college. It was completely different. It was an international college where children from different countries and cultures studied. That all had tremendous support. We had interesting tasks. For example, we had to prepare a national dish of the country where we came from. We performed traditional dances of our country. I really like that in England, education is aimed at developing analytical skills, constantly thinking. I can say that in England, I never had even an idea to cheat or cram. Education implies that every question can have several different answers. It doesn't make any sense at all. My name is Sofia, and I came from Dnipro. My two sisters, my mother and father, came with me. I go to school at Blackfen. The girls are very supportive. They help me, they teach me everything. They support me in gymnastics. Now I take part in competitions. In Ukraine, I had my first adult category. Here I do not know yet what are the levels. I have the second level, but how good it is, I do not know. In the future, I really want to become a coach.
In future.
We did gymnastics in Kiev. We went to the Diriginas school. We really wanted our daughter to continue her studies here. I was just looking for every possible option. We came here and we were offered to train for 1 month for free, and then we would have to pay. Those who are registered on universal credit, in case you have all the right documents, you can get compensated 85% of the payment. Rhythmic gymnastics is the most popular sport in Ukraine. Since many people know me in the world of rhythmic gymnastics, many people wrote to me from different countries that they are ready to accept Ukrainian gymnasts and train them for free. We will provide them with accommodation. I realized that it is necessary to somehow resolve this issue, to systematize it. Together with my colleague Ola, we created a map which is called Shelter Map for Ukrainian Gymnasts. Today, there are 1,200 sports clubs from more than 50 countries on this map, from Australia to Costa Rica, and there are clubs from the United Kingdom as well. What can you do with this map? Every club around the world provides information: club name, address, contact phone number, and how they can help. Some clubs may offer free coaching. Some clubs write that they can provide accommodation, food, and so on. Some clubs offer jobs for Ukrainian coaches from the war zone.
In our neighborhood, there was a meeting for Ukrainians where different projects for Ukrainians were presented, advice on how we can register with a doctor and get different help, how we can adapt here in the UK. We saw an announcement about gymnastics and we were invited. The first month is free for Ukrainians, so we decided to try it. In Ukraine, Yasya was doing some gymnastics. Then there was a quarantine, so we decided to resume classes.
The medical system is a separate topic. What are the main differences between medicine in the United Kingdom and Ukraine? If a person gets sick here, he won't go straight to the doctor for a checkup. They say, why do we need to go to the doctor? There is a pharmacy. We can go there and buy the right medicine for a dry cough, for a wet cough, against fever, and against diarrhea. What else do you need? You went to the pharmacy and said what are your symptoms, and they gave you the right medicine right away. I waited 2 months for an appointment with my family doctor, and I waited for him. When I went into the office, I saw the doctor sitting and typing something. She asked me, "How can I help you?" I started to tell her what was bothering me, what I had, what diagnosis I had. She nodded her head. Then I asked, "Where is your nurse?" She answered me, "We don't do that. We don't have that." I said, "Who helps you?" She answered, "I do everything myself. Nobody even examined me." The doctor just looked at me and believed me that I had this and that pain, and gave me an appointment for a blood test that might show something. Then there was something interesting. I wanted to know what my blood test was. They told me, "If there's anything bad, we'll call you." Here there is no such thing that today you want to go to the doctor and tomorrow you already have an appointment with him. I'm also very worried about the dentist. It's the most expensive thing you can have in the UK. I guess you have to sell kidney to treat your teeth. Dentistry here is not free. Dentistry is free for children under 18 and for people who have universal credit. So they receive help from state. But it's very hard to find a dentist who treats people for free. Teeth are a big problem here. In the past, many Ukrainians used to go to Ukraine or Poland to get their teeth treated. Those countries where dental services are more accessible.
We've been to the hospital several times. We were with my mom and with the kids too. You have to wait a very long time. If you go to the hospital, you have to wait for 3-4 hours. For children and elderly people, all medicines are free with the doctor's prescription. I basically liked everything, except for the fact that you have to wait 3-4 hours for the doctor's appointment. But as far as I know, such serious problems as diabetes, except for ordinary colds, they are treated here at a very high level.
You need to register with a doctor on the NHS, and you will be assigned a GP, general practitioner, who will be your family doctor. And then you can go to this GP when you have any health problems.
I really like the food here. The food here is very good because the mother is Italian, and I like Italian food very much. All the things you love: pizza, pasta. What else do you like? Pasta and cheese pasta. We eat with our family. We don't have a separate refrigerator and we don't cook for ourselves separately. I cook in the morning, I cook at lunch, Paulina takes snacks to school, and Mom cooks in the evening, and we all sit down together at the table and have dinner. You can buy everything for borscht here. There is buryak, there is cabbage. Yes, I've met borscht before. I already assume that you have a question, who is it? I'm the person who filmed this episode in London, and now I'm going to go to the supermarket and check how much the products for borscht cost. The beetroot is sold already boiled, which really isn't very good for borscht. But in some stores you can buy a bunch of fresh beetroot for £1.85. The tomatoes taste like our Kherson tomatoes. They are very sweet and juicy and delicious. The prices are different, of course. It is also very difficult to get used to the fact that each cabbage roll wrapped in a plastic bag looks not very eco-friendly to me. I bought products for borscht. I bought absolutely everything I needed. There was no problem with it, even though it is a small supermarket near the house. It all cost me 11 pounds. That's about 505 hryvnia. With these products, I could cook borscht twice.
Those products that we are used to in Ukraine can be found here, but they are a little different from ours. There is a Polish store here where you can buy our usual cottage cheese and make syrniki. I made borscht, soup, syrniki, different meat dishes, and the hosts like it all. The only thing I don't like here is ice cream and sweets. I don't know what they do wrong with it.
In the supermarkets, there is a lot of already cooked food that you can put in the oven or microwave and just heat it up. It's very helpful for those who work a lot and who don't have time for cooking. We cooked borscht and we found a store with Ukrainian lard. Maybe not Ukrainian, but it's tasty.
And you know what I'm teaching them? Because majority of Scottish, they don't eat healthy food.
No, we eat fish.
They eat, as I call it, rubbish. And now, guys, I'm teaching them. Yeah, I'm teaching them how to cook, what to buy in the supermarkets, and we do like share.
Like dinner date?
Yeah. Last night Joanna was cooking for us, and the day before I was cooking, and then Steven is cooking. So we are mixing, we are sharing the foods, we are sharing ideas, and we love each other's style because it's always different. But the most important is to have healthy food, and not much sauces, and not take away, and not all this stuff.
So Yulia's very good at teaching us a new way of life, Ukrainian food.
We buy our food in stores. There is a huge selection of supermarkets. The prices are, of course, higher, but what I really like, they have a system of discounts. At the end of the day or at certain hours, they reduce the prices of products that have expired. The prices can be 2 to 3 times lower than the regular price. We use it very actively. It saves a lot of money.
We have a family of 3 people, me, my mother, and my child. We spend about 400 pounds a month on groceries. 100 pounds a week we spend on food. As for gasoline, it's expensive here. I bought a car on diesel. I fill up the car twice a month. On this, I spend 120 pounds from the budget. This is the period for every Ukrainian who understands that he cannot go back to Ukraine this year. This is the period when you have to save up as much money as possible while we are living with the sponsors, because it could be difficult in autumn and it will be difficult in winter later on. All the Brits at my work talk about how the electricity and gas bills are increasing.
I can honestly say it's not a cheap country. That is 100%, but it's very well thought out. For example, if you come from Ukraine under the sponsorship program, here you can apply for a benefit until you find a job. You can apply for a pension if you are of retirement age, and you'll get a pension. It's not a cheap country, but it's a smart country. Here you can feel comfortable and live with different income levels. Transport is very expensive here. Very expensive public transport that you can take to Glasgow or Edinburgh or just go around. For a child, we can get a pass that allows them to use public and intercity transportation for free. As an adult, it is better to buy a ticket for the whole day. It's more advantageous than buying a one-way ticket. For example, to get from my town, Lenzi, such a bus ticket will cost about £6. You can use that ticket all day. You can travel around Glasgow, you can go back home and then back to Glasgow. But you can't do that on the train. You are given an all-day ticket, one way, and another ticket back. That's how this system works. London has very good transport, buses, subway, trains. You can go very quickly to any airport right from the city center. We mostly walk and sometimes take the bus. I don't have any complaints. You can feel a little bit uncomfortable on the subway, especially if you have a fear of confined spaces. The subway in London is very old. It was built a long time ago. The distance between the train and the platform is very big. If you don't hold the child's hand and pay attention to it, the child can fall in.
Most people in London don't have a car, and they don't have any problems with public transport. But we live an hour away from London, and we have a huge problem with public transport because there's very little of it. The public transport route connects the most remote place where you live with the center in the city. If you need to get from one end to the other end, you have to go to the center first, then change buses, and then take another one. Buses don't come very often with an hour interval. They may not come at all, or they may be late, and that could ruin all your plans. That's why I bought a car, and usually we travel by car. If the car breaks down, we have to take public transport. This is a very global issue, because transport costs £2.70 one way, which is 100 hryvnia, which is 10 times more expensive than in Ukraine. When I came here, I met with a member of the British Parliament, with our local council, and I managed to negotiate that Ukrainians in our city of Milton Keynes would get a free pass for 4 weeks. When people come here and food prices are more or less the same as in Ukraine, the cost of transport can shock the Ukrainians. They may not have so much money to go to the employment center. You have to go to the employment center once a week to register there. That means they would have to spend about £6 to get there and back. They made an exception for Ukrainians, free travel for 4 weeks after you came here.
So it's very useful to ride a bicycle here. We arranged a lot of help from the locals. They gave us a bicycle for me and my child. We bought a dog here. We have a French bulldog. Especially for the dog, we arranged a basket on the bike. We put him in the basket and he travels with us around the town. We ride the local hills, look at the local animals. He walks through the local woods. My faithful friend. Over here you should either have a car or a bike, no options. You have to go somewhere all the time.
What I don't like about Scotland at the moment is the climate. I really like it when it's warm. I love hot weather. I'm never hot. I'm always cold and very cold. I don't like the climate here very much. It often rains here, it's windy. When I came here, I didn't know that there is no summer here. We have 46 degrees in the summer, and here it's 20 degrees during the day and 10 degrees at night. Then you start thinking about bringing a jacket from Ukraine. I don't know how it turned out that way, or whether I'm in love with the nature that is here, the green grass, the beautiful trees. At the moment, I'm not cold. I have been living here for a month and a half now, and I feel comfortable, despite the fact that the thermometer has never risen about 20 degrees. The nature here is insanely beautiful. My sponsors take me to beautiful places every weekend. We've already gone hiking. They like to spend time near the lake. By the way, the Scottish word for lake is not lake, it's loch. Everybody knows the Loch Ness monster. So Loch is the lake, and Ness is the name of the lake. We go to different lakes, and then we go up to high hills, which are like mountains, but they call them high hills. They have a habit of having picnics, hiking.
When you see so much greenery around, it's because it's so humid. You start to love the rain. You start to respect it.
Our town of Milton Keynes has a very large Ukrainian diaspora. When I first met my employers, I started looking for information about this town of Milton Keynes. I found a group of Ukrainians in Milton Keynes. There were about 10 people in it at that time. They told me that there was a diaspora here. I thought that 10 people is kind of small for a diaspora. They're very good people. They hold different events for Ukrainians. Tomorrow we will go to a holiday for Ukrainians. Ukrainians are helped to integrate here. They organize different job fairs. They organize different tasty things for children, and so on. Every 2 weeks, we have meetings where we can talk, cry, sing songs, sing the anthem. They help us with things, household items, hygiene items, and so on.
There is a church in our neighborhoods where Ukrainians who have lived here for 10, 12 years have been collecting aid for Ukraine, humanitarian aid and money. The British, if possible, bring everything we need. As it turned out, many people in our neighborhood speak Ukrainian. The center we are in now is a volunteer center, Edward House, where our Ukrainian compatriots who have lived here for a long time work. It's a group of very initiative, very kind and bright people. People who visit our center can get help in different aspects. It can be SIM cards for phones. It can be help to establish communication with the local authorities. It can be help with medical issues, with employment issues, with English language courses. This hub is one of the biggest initiators of language courses. We have 6 groups of different courses. These are different levels, different class times. These are classes with native speakers. There are also our volunteers who teach English. We also have another painting classes. We organize different events. All Ukrainians who are users of social networks can get all the information they need for Ukrainians in the UK. All they can be interested in. There are a lot of Ukrainians here and a lot of different organizations. For example, not so long ago, we visited the Ukrainian Social Center, and there is also an association of the British in Ukraine. On the same street, there is a Ukrainian Cultural Institute and also a Ukrainian religious organization. There is a Ukrainian church in central London. Since the beginning of the war, here was also created Ukrainian Welcoming Center, which helps immigrants to get complete information about life in this country, how to get benefits, how to make all the right arrangements. They invite representatives of government agencies. They invite an interpreter for those who do not speak English. Yes, there are a lot of Ukrainians here. Every week they organize demonstrations in support of Ukraine 3 times a week. We also go to demonstrations to support Ukraine and feel the unity of the nation. It's important to speak loudly about our needs and to tell people that the war is not over. And we need to remember that. If you walk around London and other cities in Britain, you'll see a lot of Ukrainian flags. It's very nice when you are from Ukraine and you see this support. It's simply amazing. No one has ever called us refugees. We are displaced people from Ukraine, and everyone is very sympathetic to us.
I always said, thank you for giving us shelter, but we never wanted to be here. It was never our goal. I don't feel like a refugee. For me, that word means that I feel like I'm missing something. I try to make sure that I and my family have everything for a normal life.
We are not refugees. That is not the status we were given here. We are temporary migrants. A refugee is someone who thinks everyone owes him or her everything. Our Ukrainians who move to another country think that everyone should help them, that they are poor and miserable. I want to send a message to all Ukrainians. We are not poor or miserable. Yes, we have problems, but we are able to solve these problems ourselves. We are able to work in another country. We are able to learn new language. We can be confident and stand on our own feet, perhaps not as confident as in Ukraine. We should not forget about our national pride and remember who we were in Ukraine.
No war! No war! No war! No war! Ukraine above all!
Glory to Ukraine! Glory to Ukraine! Glory to Ukraine!
I do not feel like a refugee. I am an ordinary person like all other people in other countries. I'm the normal human being.
The British often don't realize how wonderful our life was. We have an amazing country with a perfectly developed banking system, telephone and internet. We could go to Europe for a weekend. We were fine. Now we are beginning to realize that it's not going to be as good as it was before. But we hope everything will be fine, just a little bit different. That's all we are waiting for.
I really want to go home. When we first came here, I thought it would be for a couple of months and that we would come home in autumn. Of course, it all depends on what the situation in Ukraine will be. The war doesn't end and we don't see victory yet. But that's just for now. Right now, I don't want to go back. I want to go back when it's safe. I gave myself a deadline of 1 year. As long as it is safe in Ukraine and we win. I want to go back and help rebuild our society and our country. I see living in Britain as a very good experience. I want to learn something, improve my skills and to bring it all back to Ukraine. The most important thing for me is to save my psyche and the psyche of my child. Because to recover our country, we need healthy people and, first of all, the people who are mentally healthy. We are hoping that our city will become Ukrainian again soon. And we will be able to go back to our home, to drink coffee, to see our native sea of Azov. You know, one can never feel the spirit of patriotism as much as now when you can't go home. See the sunset from your own window. Yes, we really want to go home.